The curious paradox is that when I can accept myself just as I am, then I can change. A lot of times we find ourselves beating ourselves up because we either feel like, I don't want to show up like this, I don't want to go, I don't want to start that endeavor, I don't want to jump on YouTube, I don't want to record myself because I fear that people are going to judge me harshly, I don't want to start this, or I don't want to post, or I don't want to just start that business in case it fails. When I can accept myself just as I am, that's when basically shit changes. And I say this to say, which is why I've probably just come on here barefaced and all like this, it's ultimately to show you guys that when you can accept yourself just as you are, that's when things will radically start to shift within your life. And I say this because for so long, when I didn't show up, when I was just constantly criticizing myself internally and internalizing the self-hatred within me, that's when I was the most stuck within my life. Things started changing as soon as I accepted, you know what, this is who I am. And I know I talk a lot about my lock journey on here, and a lot of the reasons why I've showed and started to showcase it on here specifically, it's simply for that, being able to actually be authentically and radically myself on here, on all platforms, being able to come on here without even like down to just no makeup, barefaced and all. I say this to say, whatever it is that's stopping you from achieving your dreams, a lot of times when you dive deeper, you start to realize a lot of it is a result of just not being able to accept yourself as you are. I just add, a lot of people sometimes think self-acceptance means indulgence. Sometimes people think self-acceptance means complacency, but absolutely not. Self-acceptance doesn't mean that you don't need to or can't focus on your goals as much as anyone else, right? Self-acceptance does not mean that you basically ignore the consequences of your actions, nor does it mean that you stop focusing on your growth and your goals. Self-acceptance essentially just means acknowledging where you are right now without judgment. Yes, you can 100% accept that, you know what, that happened as a result of me doing this. And that also is a self-acceptance, allowing yourself to actually understand that happened as a result of me doing this, but that's okay. I'm not going to beat myself up about that because it's already happened. But what I can do is learn from those lessons and work towards achieving better and greater things by navigating differently this time. This is a crucial step in actually cultivating a way for genuine change. Another misconception I just want to add, sometimes people think self-acceptance means that you accept yourself after you've achieved X or Y, or I accept myself after I bought that house, or once I bought that car, or once I've achieved this amount of sales. No, self-acceptance, being able to accept yourself as you are right now, like I said, in totality, without no judgment, and giving yourself the grace and patience that you deserve. It's about appreciating essentially who you are, regardless of where you are right now in your journey. The curious paradox is that when I can accept myself just as I am, that's when I can change. So at the beginning, often it feels like contradictory, right? You want to change, but how can I change if I can't accept myself for who I am or where I am right now in my life, right? It's contradictory because you think, in order to change, I have to not accept myself. But no, it doesn't really work like that. You're probably thinking, doesn't wanting change imply that I don't accept myself for where I am right now? This is where the paradox lies. It doesn't imply stagnation or complacency. It also doesn't mean that you have to remain where you are indefinitely. It's about accepting and appreciating where you are right now in this moment, current state, with all your strengths and weaknesses. It's about ending the internal war of self-rejection, and for so long that was me. Being in a state of peaceful acknowledgement, right? And trust me, this serves as groundwork for genuine transformation. Being at war with yourself is exhausting. It's tiring. It's tiring having to listen to those internal chatter telling yourself you are unable to do things. For so long that was me. Like when I'll be sitting down thinking, oh, I can't do this, or you overthink that there's someone is thinking about you. You're constantly listening to this little chatter that you just can't shut off in your head. Even if you can hear it, some people are cognizant of it, some of us are not. Those of us that are conscious are, and there's those of us that it's so ingrained within us that we're no longer even conscious that it exists. Constantly criticizing yourself and focusing on those perceived flaws, and believing that you will only be worthy of self-love the moment you lose weight, or the moment you feel like you fit in a certain dress or outfit. This mindset creates a negative loop of blame, shame, and just feeling like shit, excuse my language, which ends up leading you to engage in unhelpful, self-destructing behaviors. For example, you end up finding yourself doing extreme dieting to which you cannot sustain, and then you end up finding yourself binge eating, and then you find yourself stuck back to square one. Now consider a different scenario. For example, you accept your body as it is right now. Accept your body as it is, and you're also recognizing that your worth is not dependent on your weight whatsoever, whether you're bigger, whether you're smaller. But this self-worth doesn't mean that you don't want to change. This self-worth doesn't mean you don't want to work on your fitness, your goals. This self-worth doesn't mean that you don't want to change your eating habits. This desire for change comes from a place of self-love, not self-loathing. You start to make healthier choices, not because you hate yourself, but because you care about yourself. And this breaks the cycle of guilt and shame, making it easier to start to implement these things within your life. And my best advice to anyone is just accept yourself being as you are, whether quirks and all, right? And a lot of times I feel like we live in a society now where everyone wants to be like everyone else, and you're not able to embrace what's uniquely yours, embrace your little quirks and all, which means that sometimes you end up internalizing that self-hatred and taking it in internally within you, because you end up questioning yourself, oh, why did I do that? Oh, I'm so silly, like, I'm so embarrassed, I can't believe I did this. When ultimately this is what makes you you. So stop being at war with yourself. Give yourself a little bit of grace. One of the things that I find, because we're always looking at what we want to improve, what we want to achieve, what we want to do, how we want to look, we end up actually looking at the things and so becoming so focused on the things that we are not yet. And as a result, we end up actually internalizing. So for example, you are on your fitness journey, you're thinking, I really want to like lose or gain a bit of weight. And then you end up looking at where you're not, where you look at it like where you lack rather than an abundance mindset. And I say this because first and foremost, like disclaimer, not even disclaimer, I just want you to recognize that being able to actually be here right now, totally enjoying this moment, being able to actually move your hands freely, being able to walk and smell the air, as much as we might take those things for granted, they are 100% beautiful to be able to experience these things. And a lot of times we take for granted the little that we have. In fact, let me not even say little. We take for granted the things that we have within our disposal. We take for granted our bodies. And when you can actually sit down and be present and actually accept that, you know what, I'm so happy and grateful that I have this right now. A lot of times I tell people this, in order to kind of manifest the life that you want, you have to be able to have gratitude. Kind of like whenever you're wanting to manifest, it's because you're wanting to receive. But in order to receive, you have to be grateful, right? It's kind of like, how can you expect the Creator, God, depending on your spiritual belief, how can you expect to be given something if you are not even grateful for what you currently have, right? Imagine someone was about to, you wanted to give someone something, but what they already have, you know that they lack gratitude for it. Would you be open to even giving them that thing to which they seek? That's why it's important to start from a place of gratitude. Ask yourself, like, how am I in my life right now? Do I appreciate and am I grateful for the things I currently have within my life? So stop focusing on what you are not, where you are not, or how far you've got to get there. And I know in terms of like when we're trying to focus on our goals, it's so paramount that we have to focus on these things. But baby, I just want you to tell you that is the wrong place to start. Start from a place of gratitude and actually accepting and changing your self-concept. And I'm going to give you the tips, so make sure you stay to the end. Because you end up focusing so much on where you want to be, where you want to improve, you end up focusing so much of your energy there. Your thoughts start to become focused on what you are not. So this starts to focus on so much of the negative weight, right? The negativity, the negative thoughts, and so much of yourself or lack of self-acceptance starts to build from there. And this is where you start to have a negative self-concept. This negative non-acceptance acts like a block to progress, basically. Your self-concept is the way that you perceive and you define yourself. It's the foundation of your thoughts, beliefs, and actions. And then it further increases resistance to change. So, for example, you focus so much on your goals, on what you are not, or where you are not, and how long it will take you to get there, that you start to focus on thinking, oh, but damn, I don't have this, and oh my gosh, I'm so rubbish at this, I'm not doing as good as other people around me. And you see those negative thoughts start to shape your reality. those negative thoughts sit within you. Remember, over time, as a result of our thoughts, feelings, emotions, our brains shape itself. And if you are someone that ruminates a lot on negative thoughts, if you're someone that finds yourself constantly overthinking, then essentially what you're allowing your brain to do is shaping your reality, shaping yourself, shaping your brain's neural pathways to become stuck. So with every repetition of a thought, you're essentially creating your new neural pathways. So anytime you tell yourself, you know what, I can't do that, you know what, I'll probably fail at that, you know what, I'll probably suck at this, you're essentially creating neural pathways that create your reality. And this is what, I guess, manifestation, this is what creating your reality is all about. When people talk about manifesting the life that you desire, manifesting and trying to do things entirely to manifest the things that you want, essentially it's all in the brain. But if you can start by simply telling yourself something positive about yourself, remember, with each new thought you're creating a new neural pathway, which means essentially you're creating a new reality, which means you're essentially creating and changing your self-concept, and then you start to change your life, essentially creating a new way of being. These new changes, the more frequent you do them, essentially creates your new ways of being and the way that your brain is operating. So if you find yourself someone that's always ruminating, someone that's always thinking the worst, thinking so negatively, the more you reaffirm and affirm yourself so positively, and remember what I said earlier, affirming yourself in a way that allows you to be more specific to what it is that you're trying to achieve, it's powerful. Essentially what you're doing is allowing your brain to reshape itself. Your first step is actually becoming aware of where you go wrong, the kind of things you tell yourself. And if it helps to list these things down, babes, please try and incorporate that in your list in terms of your journaling. That's why journaling is so key. If you can simply just list down everything that you kind of think about, the words that you say to yourself, those micro self-concepts, those words that you say to yourself that discourage you from going towards those goals, those things that prevent you from actually heading or actioning those said tasks because you fear failure. Write those things down. What do you tell yourself in those moments? Or you start to incorporate as a way to hold yourself accountable to achieving these tasks. What are some things you're going to start telling yourself? For example, you're someone that wants to get better at your social skills. You want to get better at connecting and networking with people. In order to do that, you're not going to do that by being at home, right? So you need to then think, okay, what are some things that I'm going to do? What are some things I'm going to incorporate? You're not going to gain or improve your social skills by being at home. You're going to improve it by going out there into the world and speaking and connecting with people on here, perhaps even just posting videos more, expressing yourself more, speaking to people, voicing your opinions and showing yourself out here. And the more you do it, the more you're getting better at it. And this is what essentially is changing your self-concept. This will influence your brain to feel more comfortable in a social setting. And it's gradual exposure. And I always tell this to anyone, this is what gradual exposure essentially is. And the more you do this, the more you expose yourself to those said things that you are actually fearful of. And I've done this in the past because, trust and believe, like I said, we're all going through this journey together. There are times when I have felt insecure. There was times when I felt anxious. There was times where there were things that in my life that I needed improving on. And in order to kind of focus on those things, I really started to think about, okay, what are some things that I can kind of force myself to not throw myself in the deep end entirely, but things that I can gradually expose myself to. So I'll give you like a short story. There were times where I would find myself sitting down and I don't even want to open TikTok because I didn't give myself that grace. I wasn't compassionate towards myself. I was beating myself up entirely. I was at war with myself, right? And I was thinking, I'm posting videos, I'm not doing well. What is it? Is it people that are struggling to connect with me? Is it me? And I was internalizing this and I felt like somewhat defective. But what I found out by doing this, it prevented me from showing up. Because it prevented me from showing up, I wasn't able to be as consistent, and essentially the self-fulfilling prophecy occurred because I wasn't able to show up, which meant that the same result or the goals that I wanted to achieve, I was unable to achieve because I wasn't showing up entirely, because I was directing all that critique back at myself rather than thinking, okay, give myself a bit of compassion. I'm doing the best that I can here. And what can I learn from this experience? And because I didn't do that at the time, I decided that it just made me feel anxious. Going on socials made me feel anxious. And it wasn't until I started to gradually expose myself to social media again, to a point where it became like a frequent activity. And the more time you spend focusing on those situations, the more time you find yourself focusing on being comfortable in those situations that you initially found uncomfortable, the more you start to create these neural pathways. And it will start to influence the neural pathways in your brain in the way that makes it feel better to be in those situations. Be able to achieve a state of comfort, a state of confidence. And by doing so, you end up realizing that it takes less and less effort over time. And the key to change your self-concept is your controlled attention and awareness. It's trying to combine the two. You see, your thoughts and feelings are always going to be there. There's going to be times where you feel sad. There's going to be times where you think about your past. There's going to be times where you kind of ruminate on that relationship that never worked out, on the fact that that person might have cheated on you, on the fact that you might have failed that exam one time and that you feel like, oh, what if I failed this business, or I fail at this, or my driving test, or I can't buy this house. Whatever it is, these thoughts are going to creep up. I can't sit here and pretend that, guys, ladies, you're never going to feel this way. You are absolutely going to feel like shit sometimes. Sometimes you're going to feel dragged. Trust me. Like, these things are going to come up. You can't stop them entirely, because as long as we're living, we also have to realize that there's going to be good and bad that comes with it. It's part of just our yin and yang and the balance of life. And what you can do is bring your attention to your thoughts and feelings, which I mentioned earlier, your awareness. Start to become a witness to these movements, those thoughts and feelings. And if you journal, then this is the perfect time to start. Beware of where your attention goes and whether you find yourself going through a spiral of negative thinking. And you can choose to let it pass by either refocusing your attention elsewhere. And one of the things I like to do is, when I catch myself thinking negatively, I try to counteract it with something totally positive. Sometimes those micro self-concepts come up so quickly that you're not even cognizant of it. But trust and believe, the more you do this, the more you start realizing, damn, you catch yourself thinking so negatively so quickly that you're not even conscious of it, but you become conscious of it. Or often over time, you'll find yourself that niggly feeling where you find yourself either struggling to do something or to take action, because ultimately you're fearing the fact that it's gonna go wrong. So let's talk about micro self-concept. This relates to your day-to-day beliefs. Ask yourself, what do I think about myself on a daily basis? And I'm going to include some examples here. One of the things I started doing in order to, counteract this was to literally repeat to myself the total opposite, the positive affirmation. And when people sit there and tell you, oh my gosh, talk to yourself in an affirming way, tell yourself, I am beautiful, I'm more than grateful, I am this and I'm this. It's amazing. But do you know what takes it up a notch? It's when you can sit there and actually tell yourself affirmations that align with exactly what you're going through at the moment. It's all great telling yourself, I love myself, I am more than worthy. It's nice, but how do you make it stick? You make it stick by making sure it's your self-affirming actual things that are actually happening to you in reality. Because I'm not going to sit there and tell myself I am successful, I am this and I'm that, when I'm not taking any action. There's nothing in my life that is making me feel like, oh, I am working towards, that I have a goal towards. And I always feel like anything that you're not affirming or you're affirming with no action is delusion. So in order to affirm positive things within your life, make sure that the things that you're using, or the self-affirming words that you're using, they directly correlate with what it is that you're actually going through. So this is how you're going to do it. You're going to write down 3 things you love about yourself and how you're going to improve. Remember, you are directly linking it to what it is that you love about yourself. So you're not going to sit here and say, I am beautiful, I am worthy, and I am achieving great, magnificent things. That is not specific. You've got to make it specific. What is it that you are affirming to yourself? What are 3 things that you love and value about yourself? Make it specific. You're going to repeat these daily until they become ingrained within your self-concept. This is what makes it become more personable, and this is what allows you to actually start to believe it. You're not going to believe something that you are not actually directly correlating it to, nor do you feel like, because you're not going to see the impact that it's going to have on your life. So you could start by things that you love about yourself and things that you want to improve. You end up just embracing the things that make you uniquely you by making it specific and making those affirmations stick, girl. Okay, so moving on to the next one, right? So now let's move on to macro self-concept. So I'm just looking at my notes to make sure I'm actually following through. This is I say more grander, longer term to term views in terms of the way that you view yourself. So this is more expansive rather than those thoughts, the niggly thoughts, because the macro is more like, oh, I'm so rubbish, I can't believe I did that, that's so embarrassing, right? But the macro is more like your longer term view of yourself, especially when you start getting to setting those goals about yourself. This is where you start to fine tune those macro self-concepts, to start making sure that you're working towards those goals. So this is where you start to define your life's desires. Set clear, achievable goals, make it specific. If anything, make it so specific that you can track it, right? And I say this because that was me. Girls, guys, if you made it here already this far, please make sure to subscribe and like this video, share it with a friend in case it helps. But I say this to say I had to make my goals very specific, and not only that, I had to make sure that they were measurable, because when we don't see the success, what do? We revert back to our normal habitual ways of life, those unfulfilling patterns, those patterns that are actually self-defeating, where we internalize the hate or the lack of success. But when you could even directly correlate it to, you know what, these were my goals, and how am I going to track that I'm achieving said goals? By having things that you can, key performance indicators that are showing you directly, this is what I am achieving, this is how much I'm planning on achieving by X date. So how am I going to break it down so that I'm achieving this amount of said things, or completing this said tasks each month, each week, each day? You're breaking it down into small chunks that are manageable. I always tell people this: in order to get any type of result, is to make things very small and incremental, so that they become easier to navigate, and then ultimately they become easier to track, and ultimately they become easier for you to view and see directly that this is actually how I'm actually moving, and this is the direct impact that I'm having on my life. And as a result, you start to directly feel positive, and it ends up impacting you, where you feel confident, your self-esteem, if I can get my words out, your self-esteem grows significantly. And I just want to add this as a caveat: just because you might not achieve those set goals specifically, and I'm not saying you won't, I just want to add that, because I don't want you getting to that place where you're like, oh, you know what, I haven't achieved this task, so because I haven't achieved this task, I feel unworthy, I feel defective, I feel insignificant. Hell no, you are not insignificant or unworthy, because you've learned something from it. Yeah, which means that you can either repeat the process, change it up slightly, you're learning something from it. And this is where I want you to also counteract those thoughts. What have I learned from this? What is this teaching me right now? What can I take and what can I leave? And what can I take forward onto my next venture to kind of propel me forward? And this is where I had to kind of shift my mindset. Because at times, I'm not going to lie, at times I was on here, I was on YouTube, TikTok, I will do things and I'm like, I see the value added here, but I don't see the numbers that are correlating with the value that I'm adding in other people's lives. And in order to kind of shift that, I had to kind of ask myself, okay, what are you learning on here? What are you learning about yourself? I find that I'm more self-critical when I feel like I've put in so much effort, but I'm not seeing the outcome of my results, because there's so much effort that goes into it. And there's effort that is effortless, and there's also effort where you feel like, I'm doing too much, and you end up feeling like time wasted. For example, you've done your face, you've done your whole makeup, you've done your hair, to sit down to record a 30-minute video to not get a lot of views on it. Come on, you're gonna feel shit, not gonna lie. And that was me for so long. I felt rubbish. But then I thought, how can I make this easy on myself so that I always show up, so that I don't beat myself for, I haven't done this today, or I haven't achieved my goals, because I want to come up, I want to become so picture perfect, which goes back to changing that self-concept. I had to change the self-concept of feeling like I have to be perfect for people to, I guess, resonate with me, for people to resonate with what I'm talking about. Regardless, value is value. It doesn't matter how you show up, whether I come here in a t-shirt, whether I come up here with a dressing gown, whether I come up here in my pajamas. Value is value nevertheless. And those that will resonate with your story, will resonate with whatever it is that you're trying to teach them, your ventures, your business, whatever it is, they will resonate with it entirely. And those that don't, they don't. Unfortunately, we can't please everyone, and that's another thing. changing that self-concept that you have to be perfect in order to please everyone. It's acceptance that sometimes I might not please everyone, and that is okay. As you get older, it becomes harder to try and change someone. People get stuck in their ways. And it's the same thing with regards to just changing your brain. It's absolutely possible, but the more you dwell on those negative thoughts, it becomes that much harder to try and shift your state of being and your goals, and it becomes harder to try and work towards those goals, because you're essentially just strengthening those newer pathways. However, if you change and shift towards things that you are grateful, what happens when you've literally mastered something? You end up feeling like, you know what, I can do it again, because you create newer pathways. This is science. This is something that we are living day to day. We do it. Think of it like this: you passed an exam and you've now confident about that said exam, and then in the future, when it comes to perhaps exam preparation, you become well equipped to dealing with the pressure that comes with it. Similarly, if you've run a marathon, next time you do it, you're going to become well equipped, because you've essentially just strengthened your newer pathways that pertain to that said task. For example, the skill sets needed, the gratitude, the confidence required, all those newer pathways that are associated with those specific emotions, they strengthen, and over time it becomes easier and easier and easier. But this approach recognizes that our thoughts actually influence our emotions and our behaviors. If you constantly berate and criticize yourself, then negative thoughts and negative actions will start to foster. It will start to foster feelings of worthlessness, despair, feelings of inadequacy. You've probably heard everyone talking about having an abundance mindset, and this is where it stems from. You see, when you think that your cup is overfloweth, right? You're never going to feel like you have lack. And when you feel like you have lack, you're eternally telling yourself that you are not worthy. But when you get to a place of self-acceptance, you actually take responsibility for your life. You find yourself not blaming external circumstances for where you are right now in your life. And you actually think, you know what, I appreciate where I am right now, and I'm going to do the best that I can to keep thriving. And you actually recognize that you have the power to change your life. I just want to share this with you, which has really helped me change my self-concept and stop being so much at war with myself. Imagine yourself as a garden, and you're tending to this beautiful garden. And this garden is a garden of self-acceptance. Feel free to give it a name should you wish. This garden symbolizes your entire being. Right? You can call it your name if it helps. It symbolizes your personality, your emotions, your strengths, your weaknesses, your experiences, as well as your ambitions. Every plant and flower represents a different aspect of you. Some flowers are vibrant, they demand attention, and you also have some flowers that are not so much. So those that are vibrant and demand your attention, they symbolize your strengths, your achievements. You also have those that are like kind of still budding, those that are hidden in the shadows. These represent the parts of yourself that you have not yet to acknowledge, but the parts of yourself that you haven't yet embraced. Remember, as the gardener, you have a choice. You could criticize and neglect those plants that don't really meet your expectations, refusing to water them until they improve. But you know what? Without care and acceptance of their current state, these plants are just going to wither and die, and they're never going to have a chance to bloom. But on the other hand, you can accept each plant and flower as it is, understanding that every garden has its variety and a place of growth. But by offering care and acceptance to all plants, you're allowing them room for growth. Even those that are less appealing or slower to bloom, you find yourself, the more you tend to these, you find yourself that you're fostering a vibrant and more healthier garden, which is you. You're acknowledging that each plant, regardless of its current state, it has the ability to bloom, to grow, and to transform. You see this whole concept replacing garden with you. You accepting yourself as you are creates an internal environment which is conducive to personal growth and change. The paradox of self-acceptance is that it might seem like you're accepting stagnation, but in reality, you're nurturing a seed of transformation. Please, please, please remember, this journey, not a linear path or a spiral. I've got a whole concept on this as well. Feel free to sign up to my newsletter. I send it every week on a Monday if you need further guidance on this. This journey is a spiral with its ups and downs, but it's also got twists and turns. Don't rush the process. Take time to nurture to your own garden. Remember to nurture each plant with compassion and patience. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.